Go ahead, Stephen. What's the next part of your question, bud?
I know you obviously don't go into specifics, but just from if you guys have gotten results back, are you encouraged, discouraged, anything just about the health of the team?
Yeah, I'm encouraged by the health of the team. I think, like I told our guys, right, we know how this thing, you talk to some people in the Titans, right? It takes one person, and you never know, right? That person maybe have gotten it from hugging their mom who lives down in Dallas, right? And then all of a sudden it spreads through your team. So continue to remind them to be safe and smart with all their decisions. But yeah, I'm encouraged by the results. But again, we know this, guys, right? Like I'll tell you, all the way hopefully through the end of December, is we got to keep our fingers crossed, and every test is gut wrenching because you never know what the results are going to be.
Terry Davis, go ahead.
How you doing, Coach?
Good, Gary. How are you?
All right. Hey, I know this week you say you like to do work on what's best for you. When you think you're going to start installing the UCF defense and offense?
Yes, we started to look at it a little bit and show a little bit of film, and so we've kind of implemented, a little bit. But, us as a staff, we still got to go back, and I've got a lot more film to watch on them. And, with them having a similar staff, I've got to go back for quite a few years to study film. So the game plan really probably won't be set really what we want to do till probably a whole week from now. But we're slowly starting to implement it, with some of the stuff we did. We did a little bit more good on good offense versus defense today, which was, it's positive. We need to do that stuff.
Mike, go ahead.
Morning, Coach. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Good. How hard is it after you waited 28 days to play and then the way that game went about to then hit another bye week? I mean, isn't this one of those situations where you've waited so long to play, now let's get some games under our belt? So how hard was this bye week coming right after you had to deal with that 28-day layoff?
Yeah, I mean, look, I wish like every year the bye week would be right in the middle of the season or, right just after, almost 3/4 of the way. But it falls where it is, and we've got to make the most out of this. As we know, there's a lot of corrections to be made. So, Mike, that's kind of what we're doing is I feel like every time we're in one of these pause moments, it gives us a chance to reflect on what we need to do, right, and get a lot of different guys either healthy or just to continue to work on our basic fundamentals. Because, whether it's the third game or the 12th game of the year, right, the fundamentals are going to be key. And we got guys rotating a bunch of different spots, and so that's kind of what we're using this week for as well.
Is this one of these situations, though, where continuity, it looked like it took about a quarter and a half, from Coach Speak, just one of those situations where you just rather play again to see if you could carry over the second half into the next week?
Yeah, if you ask me if I had my druthers, sure, I'd like to be able to roll into some more games because I think that's what it's probably more beneficial for our guys, but this is the circumstances we're given, and so we'll make the most out of this. But like I told our guys this morning, right, we got some guys that are bruised up and everything. I said, look, the reality of this is we're rolling through a gauntlet. Once we get going. So there can't be, hey, I'm going to take a couple of days off. That's why I said we don't have time for a bye week, right? We got to get to work and improve. And if you're bruised up, that's part of it. And I kind of used the example. I said, look, guys, a normal NFL preseason is 4 games, right? Obviously this year's different than every year, but if you're not a Pro Bowler, you're probably playing at least 3 of those games, right? And then you play a 16-game regular season schedule and a bye week. So you're talking at least minimum a 21-week schedule. And if you go to the Super Bowl, I mean, you're talking almost 25 weeks. And a lot of these guys have played consistently for years and years, right? They're going to be bruised up, but they got to take care of their bodies. And I just kind of put what's going on with us in a grand spectrum. So we got to push a little bit more.
Evan, go ahead.
Brian, kind of on that note, you guys are going to be playing 8 straight weeks after this off week. So how do you kind of use this week to kind of, are you doing anything differently to kind of keep guys fresh? Or as you said, is it kind of just keeping guys in rhythm so that they're not necessarily just avoiding rust, but also keeping their bodies together? Because that is going to be a gauntlet, as you said.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, Evan, right? So practice today, tomorrow will be more of a walkthrough and meetings and lifting. And so we're not just going to bang for a week straight and then go into UCF prep. We're kind of doing, hey, then tomorrow will be more meetings and walk through, and then the next day a good practice. And then we're doing that alternate schedule that we kind of done for the previous couple of weeks. The players seem to react pretty well to it. Obviously, we didn't like the results, but I think that keeps them fresh but it also keeps their mind going. And also at the same point, trying to make sure that rust that's gone, right? And again, I'm not using any excuses, right? But that we're heading all directions and clicking all cylinders heading to UCF.
Does it help too with your NFL experience to kind of, prep the guys saying, like you said, hey, this is kind of what the NFL has done. You kind of preach that to the guys, hey, this is how you can kind of take care of it. Is it just your strength and conditioning staff implementing that too?
Yeah, it's a combination of everybody, right? We're fortunate. We got a great training staff, great strength and conditioning staff. And we talk about it. And I think that's so important to talk, to learn. And, I was at UCF in the days of a guy named Kevin Smith. I'm not sure if you guys remember that name, but he'd probably average 30 carries a game, and he'd come back and in the locker room, he'd start the bruising up would start on his body. And he had a lot of tread on his tires and ran for over 2,000 yards. At one point, he was right behind Barry Sanders, right, for the single season rushing record. But it's a guy that just pounded and kept going. And, and good for him. I mean, obviously he was one of those guys that lived in the training room, took care of his academics, but the rest of the time he, hydrated and took care of his body. And same deal with guys like Adrian Peterson and some of the greats we've been around, Calvin Johnson. And so I continue to encourage our guys, and even if it's a little story or a name they know, sometimes maybe if it just makes effect on one person to take care of themselves the right way, it will allow us to be better in the long run. Go ahead.
I think no, go ahead. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, Ron, basically, I was just going to ask you just in this season with obviously you guys, SMU, even Tulsa now, just how strong do you think the conference is, and how much has the conference just improved from your first years here at Memphis?
Absolutely, Stephen. I think you can look, like I even remember, so I used to be a grad assistant at UCF under George O'Leary. And I just remember, right, people look down upon Memphis. We're always like, oh, okay, it's just, whatever, it's not a very strong football program. But you see the way this thing has swung, right? I mean, Tulane, everybody talks about Tulane being on the upward swing. I mean, Tulsa, who wants to play Tulsa right now? I mean, they battle day in and day out, and they got great players. I mean, UCF's very talented. USF's on the rise, right? I mean, it's just, you're looking at our conference, and there is no top to bottom. I mean, you think any team wants to line up against Navy regardless of their record? I mean, it's so, you're exactly right, Stephen. This conference has gotten better every single year, and I firmly believe that. And I'm not going to sit here and look at other conferences and say, well, look what's happened at that conference or this conference. But I just, like I said, I think ours stands pretty damn tall up there. And I think you see the competitive nature, especially when we have the opportunity to play teams out of conference as well.
Mike, go ahead.
Ryan, does this UCF game lose a little bit of its luster because both of you lost some tough games, or because you guys have had such a rivalry and have played so many marquee games that doesn't matter what the records are, it's going to be a great one on the 17th?
Yeah, I think like a lot of our conference games are starting to become that, right? Now, all of a sudden, the Memphis SMU games are a rivalry game, right? We always know Houston, we know Navy, right? And so this one's right there in the mix with it, Mike, that we feel like we don't talk about records. We really don't, because like Steven's question, every team is a great opponent week in and week out now. And as you guys mentioned, we're kind of entering the gauntlet, and this is just the first test of many. And we know they're talented. We know what they're capable of. Obviously, we've had a lot of battles, which a lot of these guys haven't been part of. So we're just excited, excited about, the Liberty Bowl and hopefully having some more fans and rolling in there. But to be back home and have the opportunity to compete. And I think our guys are anxious, excited. Like I told you guys after the game, there were a lot of hurt people, mad people in our locker room, and rightfully so. I told them to remember that feeling, and hopefully we don't ever feel it again. So they're anxious, and part of this week is getting ourselves ready to go play a game.
Evan, go ahead.
So Ryan, Sean Dykes has obviously become such a downfield weapon before. Obviously, the AAC championship game 3 years ago, he was a downfield threat. What is it about his game that's made him just be able to, besides being healthy, just be able to be such a great downfield threat alongside, coaching and obviously Calvin's speed?
Yeah, I mean, he's, like I always said, in most programs, his size and stature probably not suited for a tight end, right? They're more for a good size receiver, but he's got fantastic hands. He's got great ball skills. I think some of that was demonstrated, on the Saturday and obviously in the Arkansas State game. But his willingness, right? He gets lost because you can line him up and put his hand on the ground, and he's blocking for 5 straight plays, and then all of a sudden, well, okay, he's a blocking tight end. Now all of a sudden you see him with speed down the field. So he has that unique trait where he can be lined up all over the field. I mean, he could line up easily as a wide receiver for most programs in the country, but then we can put him with his hand in the ground, then we can have him in the backfield on some motion stuff that you guys seen. So his versatility has allowed him, Evan, to be able to line up all over, which makes him more of a threat because you don't know where he's going to be. How do you match up with him, right? Do you try to put a safety on him, a linebacker? Do you go over and put a corner on him because of he's so dynamic in so many different aspects?
Does he compare in some way? Obviously, Memphis has had such great tight ends, but does he compare in any way as far as like skill set, being able to kind of have that versatility between, being a great receiver as well as being a great tight end, do you think?
I've been around some, obviously Alan Cross was our grad assistant last year and saw some great film on him. Obviously, Alan Cross had a different tenacity, but Sean's really improved his run game, and he takes a lot of pride in it, right? His footwork, the efficiency, where he wants to get his steps, which has been awesome. I've been really proud of the way Sean's really approached that. And then, down the field threat, I mean, he was around, we were talking just a minute ago because he's standing over here about some of the guys he's been around, right? Joey Magnifico, right? A guy that, one of the all-time leaders in catches. And so be able to see some of those ball skills and see the way he was able to attack certain routes, even though Joey wasn't the fastest. So now you're able to combine some of that stuff. And, there's been a lot of tight ends that have come here. Daniel Montiel, he was mentioning that name. I'm not sure if any of you guys remember him. So it's just kind of unique to see Sean's growth, and he's taking a lot of pride in having success on the field.
Stephen?
All right, Ryan, this Memphis UCF series, the games have been really close, but as of right now, they have a 13-game winning streak against the U of M. Do you think that will matter much to the players, or does that add any motivation for this gearing up for this matchup?
I think like every game we look at as a year in, year out, right? We know that sometimes it's different coaching staffs, it's different players. I'm not even sure if I'll mention that to them, but now that you think of it, kind of puts the chip on my shoulders. You guys know, we're kind of have that mentality of us versus everybody. And yeah, I mean, that should frustrate our guys, especially guys that have been in the program, right? I went back and was watching those two games from 2018 because of, similar defense coordinator, just to see some different stuff. And I'm sure they're doing the same since, I was one of the staff members then and what we do in the run game. So, I know how deep this rivalry runs and how competitive this game is going to be, but yeah, we got to find a way to get this thing going in the right direction. Obviously, the history has not been on Memphis' side, but hopefully we can change that here in under 2 weeks.
Mark?
Hey, Ryan. I'm curious, when you went back and looked at the film of that fourth quarter from this past weekend, when you had those 3 drives where you had your chance to win the game, when you went back and looked at offensively what happened there, would you do anything differently play calling wise, or was it merely just, we didn't execute the play? Like I look back at the last drive where you have, if that pass to Calvin Austin is like an inch shorter, he probably scores a touchdown, and we're talking about a totally different story here. But I'm curious, when you look back at those 3 drives, what your analysis was of what happened there.
Yeah, obviously, and it ultimately falls on me, right? So the play calling, it's my responsibility. So, but we've got to, dial up better plays, put our guys in better position. We got to execute better. There are certain things where the assignments weren't correct. And, and I always said, like, I've got to dial up a little bit better run game in the fourth quarter in order to maintain those drives. And then ball security, right? I mean, 3 turnovers, I don't think you're going to win many games. I mean, the percentage is so low, it's got to be under 10% to win a game when you turn the ball over 3 times, regardless of what the opponent does. And, we had that happen, and it's unfortunate. It obviously happened on possibly a game-winning drive. And we have certain checks and balances. Obviously, the nice thing is we have a very intelligent quarterback in Brady White. And we had something called, and he put us in the right position. We just got to be able to execute. And so a combination of things that we need to improve upon.
Will it be easier to game plan for this game because you have that film and you have another game under your belt? Was it hard to game plan for that game given the variables at play?
I think we not necessarily game plan, but how are we going to use our student athletes right on the field. How are we going to be able to take advantage, right? Who is going to be able to get it? And we had plenty of guys getting IVs. I mean, the COVID's affected people in different manner, right? We had some guys that weren't able to get reps. We've had players that have never come off the field on offense or defense that had to get substituted for various reasons, right? If a guy was out for 14 days without contact tracing, he was not in shape to be able to play 85 plays. And that's the reality of it. And again, no excuses whatsoever, but we had that in the back of our mind, and we were having to sub different guys in and out of the game. But moving forward, not necessarily the game planning, just the execution during the game. Some of those things we probably could have been different. And, hopefully we got as many hands on deck as we can versus UCF. And now our guys, I think one of those things is our guys, when you have a chance to watch yourself on film, it's always something to study an opponent, but you learn, okay, that's what you keep talking about. That's what you meant. And then they can study, and if they can learn from it, generally that improvement, we always say, you watch it week in, week out, the improvement from week 1 to week 2 is astronomical, right? And then week 2 to week 3 is even better. So we're hoping we're making that next jump. Problem was our week 1 to week 2 was 28 days. And again, no excuses, no explanations. It's just that was the reality of it. And now we need to make an even bigger jump. And regardless of the game plan and all that stuff, just with our execution of what we need to accomplish.
Sorry, one last thing. Do you think these 2 weeks, those guys who were quarantined or contact tracing and couldn't possibly have gotten into game shape, if you will, to play a full game, do you think these 2 weeks by the UCF game, those guys should be able to be back to where they would normally be in these circumstances?
I would like to think so. And that's part of the reason why we're not just, hey, let's just take this week off and get, we got to push a little bit. And that's why we're out there today in full pads and getting back to some live contact, because I think that's important. It's because if you don't do it, and the reality of it is you can't wait till a Saturday for it to show up. So we're going to push the guys this week. Obviously, like I said, tomorrow they'll be off from a physical standpoint, but we got to push them mentally, and then, hey, we'll be back at it again on Thursday. So I think we'll get back to where we need to be. I'll let you know here in about 12 days if we're in the right shape, but hopefully so.
Thanks.
Mike?
Ryan, after such an ugly start with your defense, what they did in the second half was really impressive at SMU. Obviously, kind of the same sort of story from the opener with some struggles in the first half. But what's got you, I don't know if it's excited is the right word, but about the rest of this season with the defense? Because, again, it was so ugly early, but they kept you in the game, allowed you to make a game of it.
Well, we know what they're capable of, and that's the thing, right? You're exactly right. It's almost like a tale of two halves or different quarters, right, Mike? So you know what they're capable of. You see them put it on tape, and so that gets you excited. I mean, if we could play that way all the time, yes. But so again, like I said, we've got to do a better job of starting fast, and I think that's as an entire program. And I don't know if it's got to be a different motivational speech or rah-rah, making sure that we're doing something different pre-game. Do we get to the stadium too early? Do we get into the stadium too late? All those things that I've got to do a good job of exploring. Why aren't we starting fast? And I think that's, obviously from a defense standpoint, it has shown up on film that we're not doing what we're capable of, especially in that first quarter. So I'm excited because I've seen what they're able to do, and I know we got playmakers, and I trust our staff. We just got to start doing it and executing it. And, part of that's, the way that we're doing some of our practice, maybe start with some tempo stuff right after stretch and rolling right into that.
But what was it that maybe stuck out? I mean, was it just the lack of getting guys to the ground, which led to those big plays? I mean, if there's something you look at, it's fixable, I'm guessing.
Well, you're exactly right. It's the explosive plays, right? I mean, we don't ever want to be known as a bend but don't break defense, but you got to solve for us as an offense, right? When we had 12-play drives, even longer than that, it's hard for 18 to 22-year-olds, much less these NFL teams, to sustain these long drives based off of what the defense gives you, right? The defense was allowing us – we were taking those 5 yards a carry. I think, the running game ended up averaging 5.5 yards a carry. So we were taking what they were giving us, but to sustain it, and then we had a turnover, right? Or something occurred, or we, shot ourselves in the foot with penalties. And that's the same thing with our defense is, we were an explosive like that. And the next thing you know, it's 7 points, right? They were turning a 7-yard gain into a 70, right? A 5-yard gain into an 80. So the tackling first and foremost and being in the right position to, what we call swarm to the ball and not allow those explosives, learn to fight another down, right? Make them play another 3 sets of downs, right? Make them try it again. And rather than, hey, on first down, all of a sudden you turn around and they're kicking a PAT.
Steven, last question.
One of the guys I think that just kind of came off the bench, and at least from my perspective, looked like he was just kind of making plays just around the ball, was John Broussard. So what was your evaluation of how he played, and what's your confidence level with the secondary as those guys slowly get more healthy?
Yeah, Steven, I mean, I think you guys all watched the game, saw that I think we end up playing in almost 8 guys in the secondary, and for various reasons, right? And is that ideal? No, but at least, you feel like you're rotating some depth for the future. I was proud of the way John Broussard was able to step in and handle his business, and we're expecting big things from him, and he's going to continue to be a contributor. But we had to roll more guys in the secondary than we wanted to, and that's part of it. And but again, I've got confidence in them. I know they'll get it done. And look, nobody hurts as bad as we do, right? We don't. There's a lot of things that sit here and say, hey, you could have done this. Absolutely. But our guys looked in the mirror and said, man, coach, that wasn't good enough. And it started with me.